Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week, as you know, meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And boy, I can't believe it's been so long since we had this next gentleman on our show.
Well, yeah, Bobby told us that it's been something like 17 years since he's been on. Bobby Stem is our guest this week, and we're really pleased to catch up with him. He's got a lot to tell us.
Very connected with state politics and state issues, and specifically highways and transportation. So we'll learn all about that.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. It's a long word. Bobby Stem, today's guest on The Verdict.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
Military service ran in my blood, starting from my father, which joined the Navy, on the Chickasaw side, my uncle, which served in the United States Army. I'm Benjamin Espinosa, Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy, and I'm Chickasaw. I went to the Secretary of Defense's staff at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., which ultimately led to becoming a combat support technician for Naval Special Warfare, specifically SEAL Team 10. I think to be proud and to love your tribe, to love being Chickasaw, you also have to love being American. You also have to love everything that America stands for. Equality, perseverance, professionalism, and power. I want my family to know that their father is a good person, but also feels that he has an obligation to the country and to love this nation. Anything worth having is worth dying for. The military and the country owes me nothing. I owe it everything.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Very pleased to introduce Bobby Stem, again, 17 years after the first time I did it on this show. Bobby is the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Association of General Contractors. He did his undergraduate work at the University of Central Oklahoma, did his law work at Oklahoma City University. He was raised in Tulsa, and he got interested in politics through his association at the University of Central Oklahoma with former Governor George Nye. And George Nye has interested a lot of people over the years, and he interested Bobby in the kind of work that he's ended up doing today. He's been with the Association of General Contractors about 16 years. The last 11 or 12 or so has been as the executive director. Bobby, welcome back. Sure glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here, guys. I really am. It's an honor.
Yeah. Well, what's on the top of your mind right now? Looking at state government, looking at the people you work for. What are you working on these days?
You know, it's interesting. Probably the thing that we're paying most attention to is going to be the federal government with the huge infrastructure package. And, you know,
and you're for that.
We are for it. You know, it's interesting. We're for most of it. But I'd rather have that than nothing.
Right.
It is, as anything in Washington, it's right now in political volleyball. You know, it's between the House and the Senate, the Democrats and Republicans, and it's tied to the larger, what we'll call human infrastructure bill. And so there's rumor, Washington rumor, for what that's worth, that says if the human infrastructure bill doesn't pass or doesn't look like it has any support, then the Speaker of the House won't bring up the highway infrastructure bill. And so at this point in time, it's a hurry up and wait. But we're really happy that our delegation here in Oklahoma does support spending money on roads and bridges. Do they support these versions? It's really mixed, because these versions sometimes have things in it that you may not want to vote on. So, but we are glad that everybody in our delegation does want to support really good road and bridge packages. That's probably most of our attention right now.
What about your organization? Has the association taken any official position on it?
You know, we support it. Probably our most latest position, the latest position we took about 10 days ago, was a position opposing the Biden vaccine mandates. It's not a vaccine, it's not a personal freedom discussion, but it's about our employees. Right now, I would say that our workforce is the most troubling aspect of building roads and bridges.
You just can't find people to
You
work?
just can't. We are hiring people at $15 or $16 an hour. Excuse me, we were, let's say 2 years ago. COVID hits, people go home. Well, now in order to entice people to come back to work, your restaurants or your stores are offering $15 and $16, $17 an hour. So do you want to work 40 hours a week in an air-conditioned retail establishment or behind an asphalt paver in the middle of August for the same amount of money?
And that drives up the cost of the project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And typically after you've bid on the project. So I bid on the project, I set my cost or my price, I won the bid, and then you remember this being Meyers, those prices of those road projects. So the contractors are stuck with that increased cost. You don't go back to the city or the state and ask for more money because of those increased costs. So that's been our biggest challenge is the effect that it's had on the workforce.
You know, I hear that, though, across almost every industry.
Yes.
I mean, it's hiring quality people.
Absolutely.
And it's, what do we need to do about that? I mean, surely you're involved at a deeper level because it's such a big issue, but, you know, what groups in Oklahoma, Career Tech, et cetera, can we reach out to try to and get, you know, more people into the job force?
You know, it's interesting you say that. Right now, we're very fortunate that we're on a path for good funding. Typically, anybody that goes to the Capitol that's fighting for appropriations would probably sit here with you today and say, that's our biggest challenge, is finding the money. Honestly, our legislature has really put us on a path for some robust infrastructure spending. So our real concern has been that workforce, and it's not just the people we want to work tomorrow, but we have a changing attitude among young folks that maybe the four-year college degree is no longer the path. And so we find ourselves trying to actually reach out to junior high and high school students and say, if a four-year degree is not your path, did you know that you can still provide a good living for your family and be in this kind of trade, a skilled trade, whether it's a diesel mechanic, a welder, an equipment operator, a foreman of some sort. So we've got to start early on, and we have some different programs we're working on to do that. But I'd say workforce is honestly our biggest challenge right now.
Well, typically, and I may be mistaken, but typically what I in the past thought about when I heard the phrase infrastructure was what you guys do, building roads and bridges. But apparently, and I'm not up to date on it, but apparently that definition has been expanded to include other things. I don't have a pro or con attitude about that. I just want to know, is my basic understanding what agree with yours?
It does, and you know, we grew up, when I think of roads and bridges, when I think of infrastructure, I think roads and bridges.
That's, yeah.
You know, and so, you know, I remember, you know, Al Gore talking about inventing the internet, you know, decades ago. Right? That's a part of our infrastructure now, you know. And so if I take off my road and bridge hat and I really say what makes our state and country tick, it's not just roads and bridges anymore. And we especially know it after people have been working from home, that good, bold broadband, you know, having that's infrastructure now. It really is, making sure that everybody in our state has access to some kind of broadband or telecommunications. Electricity, water, those are all infrastructure. Those are all infrastructure items as well. Streetcars, that's transportation, that's infrastructure. So I really, as much as I'd like to say I think roads and bridges dominate it, I think people all across our state need a lot of different forms of infrastructure. We're a part of it.
You know, there's a general impression that our roads and our bridges are better than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That really depends on your street. You know, the one that you drive to church or the one that you go to the store. I mean, you know, people's determination on how the roads are is the roads they drive on.
That's right.
Not the state as a whole. But you're looking at the state as a whole.
Yes, sir.
So am I on the right track there? It's better than it was 5 or 10 or 20 years ago?
Guys, this is a success story. It is, you know, about 18 years ago, I think it was June 6, 18 years ago, a piece of concrete falls off of a bridge and goes through a woman's windshield and kills her. And then within a year, a barge hits the I-40 bridge, and Weber's Fall, and it collapses. Now, the barge hitting the bridge is not a structurally deficient bridge, but what it did is it caused us to move cars and trucks off of that highway and onto other county bridges just to continue to help them go through the state. That's when our secretary at the time, Gary Ridley, that's when it became very evident to him that our bridges all across the state are horrible. So they did an assessment. We were 49th in the nation. It took about a year or two to establish some legislation that put us on track. I don't know that I've ever heard of this happening, and I've been at the Capitol for 27, 28 years. We went from 49th to number 7 in bridges.
State legislation.
In the state, yes, state legislation passed, and it said we're going to begin automatically funding off the top so that it's not appropriated anymore, it's a portion, it comes off the top. We're going to go ahead and commit to fixing these bridges. Guys, 15 years later, we went from 49th to 7th. But here's the problem. Take a map of Oklahoma and put a little red dot on every bridge you fixed. It was really critical that we did it because that was what was killing people. But all of the lines in between the red dots are deteriorated. So the best ride you're going to have is over that short bridge.
Yeah.
But that road between bridges has fallen apart. So now we're shifting those bridge dollars to 2 things. We're shifting it to better pavement conditions, but, and this is where rural Oklahoma really does win, a lot of these dollars are going to go to putting shoulders on 2-lane roads. There are places across our state that if you get a flat tire in the middle of the night, you could end up dead because you've got nowhere to go. And if you're on the other side of a hill, that's a bad place to be. So I think you're going to find an increased emphasis on what they call Super 2s, and then you're going to see pavement conditions improve. It's still going to take another decade or two, but I'll tell you, Oklahoma's hit a home run on that one.
Bobby Stem is our guest. We'll be back with more with Bobby right after this.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank number 2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
We want to reach out to every veteran we can in Oklahoma. There's somewhere around 340,000 veterans here in Oklahoma. And half of those are still unaware of their benefits or don't know how to go about getting them.
We help guide the veterans through the VA system. It's a giant maze, and we kind of help guide them through that maze. So our job is to try to help the veterans get everything that they're legally entitled to. There's just a special place in my heart for our Vietnam veterans and our World War II veterans, as well as any veteran, and that's why I do the job.
One of the best kept secrets about the post 9/11 GI Bill benefit is that it can be used at a trade school or a technical school, and it doesn't have to be used at a university or college. These are benefits that the veterans have earned through their service, and they should take advantage of it.
Veterans really need to understand that there are many resources offered by the Oklahoma Department of Veteran Affairs. They are there to help you find the right school for you, the school that will help you and your family make great steps into your future.
I really think people are so unaware of the number of kids waiting just in Oklahoma. And I think if more people knew that those children were out there waiting, I think that just by the way we live our lives and the people we talk to, that maybe we can help encourage adoption from Oklahoma.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
We're back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Meyers, and our guest, Bobby Stem.
Bobby, I know you're a student of the Oklahoma economy because it's so integral to what is important to your members. What do you see as the state of the economy today?
Sure. It's interesting. I think what I read, the economy's on the uptick. So I read the treasurer's monthly report that he puts out, and that's promising. But what I see are workforce issues, and that's very challenging, and then material shortages. And so when you have global unrest, and then you have a virus that's shutting things down, sometimes it affects materials. And so right now, steel is 4 or 5 times what it was at one point in time, and it's hard to get. And so that global economy affects what comes in or how we, the products and the materials that we use. If I listen to Randy McDaniel, things sound great, and if I look around me, I feel a buzz of an economy that's churning well. But when I look at our industry, it's people and materials that are struggling right now.
Yeah, Randy's our guest next week, by the way.
Oh, great, great. Definitely ask him that one. He'll give you a longer answer.
Well, what happened to the construction business for your members during COVID?
We had a chance to continue working, so we were very fortunate about that. We were considered essential workers, and that made some sense because we're outside. We went ahead and masked up like they asked because there are some times where you have to be in a tight space. If you're tying rebar or you're down in a ditch somewhere and there's 3 or 4 of you trying to make something happen, you need to have your mask on. But for the most part, we're outside, or if you're an equipment operator, you don't share a cab with a fella. You're in there all day long moving dirt. But we had an opportunity to keep on moving. What's happened now is just it costs more to keep them. Because when everybody else started losing employees and now they have to raise those wages to get them back, well, we now have to keep up with some of those wages because people will take another kind of job because working on roads and bridges is hard work. But
sure.
It's career type work, but it is definitely hard.
I know some of your members are involved in an inmate program.
Yes.
Can you explain more about that?
This is something we're very excited about. This is our first year to roll it out. What we're trying to do is 3 pilots a year for the next 5 years. Each pilot will have 10 inmates. We've met with 6 wardens. And it's pretty easy. What we do is we find a job that's started within 45 minutes of a facility. And let's say it's going to be a 14 or 15-month construction job. We ask the warden if he can give us 10 inmates that would like to possibly go into this line of work that will be out in a year. Because our goal is then we will transport them to the job, begin to teach them the trade. They will make as much per hour as anybody else who walks onto the job. As the association, we'll buy them work clothes or boots or whatever they need so that when they show up, they feel accepted and ready to work. Imagine an inmate that the day he leaves his facility and he has served his time, he or she, because we'll hire both, that they literally the next day can go right to work. Now, if they've been working for 6 months, they will have an account with thousands of dollars. Now the inmate has, because of the Sarah Stitt Act, they'll have an ID. They will have been working already with us. If they've been working for 6 months, they may walk right into health care. If they've got the money, they've got a way to go get a place to stay and turn on all of their electricity and gas, etc. Your recidivism rate, we believe, has to shrink when you give somebody that kind of hope. Our goal is to take that limited group of 30 each year, and as an association, we'll get to know their plans. So, Mayor, if you were one of the inmates, I'm going to know. I'm going to say to you, Mick, what are your plans in 3 months? And if you say, I like working in Oklahoma City, but my mother lives in Tulsa, I'm probably going to go back, then I'm going to say, the day you get out, let's go to Tulsa and introduce you to somebody. Sherwood Construction or Manhattan Construction, because it's important to me that you get a chance to continue to work. We hope that after 5 years in this limited population, we hope to do a kind of a recidivism study, if we can, and see how did we affect the lives of these men and women. We believe we can provide them a wonderful place to work, a career, and a place to go become the father that they need to be, or the mother, or the grandfather, the grandmother. So we're very excited about that. We call it Rebuilding Oklahoma, because not only will they be rebuilding our roads and bridges, but we think we'll be rebuilding families.
Yeah. How did this come about? Whose idea was this?
I love this question. And I'm going to take this chance to brag on my cousin, Johnny. Johnny Stem spent most of his life in and out of prison. And I'm so proud of my cousin. Right now, he is a diesel mechanic at Caterpillar in Tulsa. Well, I saw him at my dad's funeral, and I hadn't seen Johnny in decades. and he had gotten a day out. He was at the halfway house, and he was on his way back into real life. And Johnny and I got to talking, and I got him a job at Sherwood. And he spent 2 years there as a diesel mechanic, and he just hit it out of the park. So much so that Caterpillar wanted to hire him. So I've watched Johnny, and that side of my family has been in and out of jail or prison throughout everybody's life. And I watched Johnny spend the last 7 years of his life totally clean, going to his meetings every weekend. He's a father he hadn't been. He's a grandfather he hadn't been, and it just changed a generation. So I would like to say that I read some Harvard study on recidivism, but no, I just looked at Johnny, and he was such an inspiration to me, and I thought this can work, you know. And so it's really exciting to be talking about something besides highway funding and highway funding and highway funding, because making our state great is more than just talking about highway funding. It's a part of it, but if we're all in this together, then we all got to try to figure out ways to make everything work. And this is probably one of the things I'm most excited about right now.
New legislative session around the corner.
Yep.
So you're going to have a list of things you want to talk to legislators about. What are y'all pushing this year?
You know, we want to protect the funding, and I'm not too nervous going into this year. The COVID relief dollars have really taken a lot of the pressure off of the budget. Typically going into session, I'd be nervous. If we were having dips in the economy and stuff, I'd be trying to figure out how I spread the word that spending money on roads and bridges is important. This last year, we really didn't talk about fixing roads and bridges. We talked about investing money in roads and bridges was a quick tax dollar into the economy, a campaign we called Fast Money that my friends Brenda Jones helped us put together. And so we talked about the economy then. This year we'll probably talk about the economy a little bit, but we may really try to talk more about our inmate program. I would really like to let legislators know that we do more than just sit around and try to figure out ways to get more money to fix things. We do, and that's important, but there's other things that we're working on. It's like some high school programs or the inmate programs, disadvantaged business enterprise programs. We have a tutoring process to where we've got a young man right now we're working with, J.V. Ingram. 2 years ago when I met him, he had a dream, and that's it. He wanted to be a truck driver. Today, he texted me a picture of his third dump truck, and he is employing 2 other people. And J.V. is in his mid-20s, and he's a business owner, and he's got 3 dump trucks. And before next March, our goal is for him to have his 4th dump truck. And so it's more than just about let's go to D.C. and fight for a bunch of dollars for roads and bridges. There's no doubt that that's important. And without that, we can't have the other programs. But we like to be part of a bigger solution if at all possible.
Well, to what extent have you interested other states or made your programs aware to other states that they might adopt similar type activity?
Great question. I was just at a conference with 22 of my colleagues from 22 other states. There's 23 states represented, myself and 22 others. The inmate program is brand new, so we've white papered that and sent it out. Because it's not really a workforce development tool. Right. It might be a little bit, but it's really more about doing something bigger and better for all of our states. So we were really proud to know that maybe we'd come up with an idea. I had to call Johnny and tell him, you were my inspiration. You could be changing things in 22 other states. And so that's been something. And then also our Fast Money campaign, where you talk to the legislature, not necessarily about fix these roads and bridges because they're important to people. You talk to them about it because it is literally probably one of the fastest tax dollars reinvested into the economy when a contractor knows he gets a job.
We only got about 30 seconds left. I know there's been a lot of structural work at the Capitol. Give people an update. If they haven't been down to the Capitol in a year or two, how is it better than it used to be?
Well, first of all, it doesn't smell bad in the basement anymore. It's a pleasant experience. It is beautiful. They have really, really done a good job. Trait, who now is over at the History Center, oversaw that construction. And it had to be a fascinating time because of all the stuff you stumbled across. But it's top of the line. Anybody who comes in there now, they're going to be proud to be part of it.
And the visitor experience is enhanced. So I guess I'm encouraging people to visit your state capitol. It's a great place to go.
Beautiful.
Bobby, we got to go. Thanks for being on the show. Kent and I'll be right back.
Thank you, guys.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
You know, the term lobbyist gets used in negative fashion so many times you forget there's actually really good people in that in employment. And Bobby's one of them.
He's an example, maybe one of the best I know of what a good lobbyist does, and what a lobbyist does is good.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at some website information. You can get more information about roads and bridges and the contractors and Bobby's organization at agcok.com. That's agcok.com. And we have a website. It's theverdict.tv, where you can log on and tell us about a guest that you'd like to see or a subject matter that you'd like to see Kent and I discuss more completely. But that's going to do it for this week's show. We appreciate Bobby being our guest, and we'll have another guest next week, and we hope you'll join us then.